wow, I just like a whole new page started loading when I clicked that button. All right.
It says on mine that we're streaming live now on Facebook.
Awesome. Well, hi, folks. I am so excited to talk to you a little bit. And my name is Duncan Autry.
And I'm Ala, and we're both business partners from Spoken Wheel. And Spoken Wheel is a learning, leadership, and people development company. And our specific expertise is in workplace relationships. And today we want to chat with you about ways to build trust and trustworthiness from behind the screen. Hey, we're all working remotely. We got to figure out how to do this from behind the screen.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, well, let's talk about trust a little bit. Like, what is trust? Like, one way we can define trust is as choosing like the risk of like making someone of sharing something with someone that you value or something that's valuable to you and making yourself vulnerable to another person's actions and words. So that could be like our job. It can be like an idea that we have. It can be a story that we want to share or our feelings. But anytime we're choosing to be vulnerable with someone, that means we're trusting them in a certain way. And so the fact is that people will trust others based on our assessments of them. And these can be based on very subtle things. But we focus on 7 different elements of trust, or 7 different categories that we think about when we're choosing to trust someone or not. And these are, one is having boundaries. Like, do they have strong boundaries? Do we know what our boundaries are? These are also honesty, responsibility, care, confidentiality, reliability, and competence. And basically we want to check to say, is someone honest? Is someone taking responsibility for their own actions? Do they actually care for us? Are they going to keep our words, in confidence? Are they reliable in the sense of they consistent and we know that they're going to keep on showing up? And are they competent? Are they actually knowing are they good at doing what they do? And do they know what they're good at what they can do?
Yeah. And something I wanted to add is that, um, because we're all people, we all assess each other, all the time. And so when somebody says trust, it sometimes feels like such a big umbrella word. Oh, do I trust you? Do I not trust you? Well, it depends. And trust, actually, the assessment of trust, of whether I will trust you and how much I will trust you, depends on the 7 categories that Duncan just said. And the same thing for you. Like, if people are willing to trust you, they find you trustworthy, they will assess that based on these categories, not based on your own opinion of your trustworthiness.
Totally. And oftentimes, if you like get yourself into a tricky conversation about trust, or you're noticing you don't really trust someone, it can really be helpful to figure out which of these 7 elements is the place where trust is either breaking down or it's working or it's not.
Yeah. I think it's hard sometimes to talk to people where trust may be broken, because you say, "Well, I don't trust you," and then they can say why. And it's hard if you're too generic, you can't actually explain to them where the trust was broken. That's why those categories is important. Well, you can say, "Oh, I really don't feel like you are reliable. You say that you're going to do something and you don't do it, so I don't trust you." That is much more specific and actionable in that way, rather than just, "I don't trust you."
Right. Or like you said that you were going to do this or that this was important to you, and then you acted in a different way. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It can really help. It's a key part of communication is being very specific about what it is that we're even talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think nowadays, now that because of COVID and everything that's happening in the world, we face even a greater challenge of building and maintaining trust remotely, right? So Duncan and I wanted to offer you 7 ways, one for each component that people assess each other on, 7 ways to build trust from behind the screen. I'm gonna do a little drum roll.
All right. Tell us, Allah.
All right. So method number 1, it has to do with boundaries. Be clear on your preferred method of communication. Is it email? Is it text? Or would you rather just have an old school phone call? I personally love an old school phone call because I can take a walk outside while I'm on the call, and that feels great. But let folks know. You can also set expectations on your response time. So be clear about that. Hey, I don't respond during the weekend, but you'll hear back from me within 24 hours during the week.
I can take that lesson too, because I don't email very much on the weekends, and I'm not sure if I communicate that to people very well. And that's just like a, really important, boundary that I have, that if people don't know that boundary's there, then they might be bothered by it, or, it could be causing an impact. So, in regards to care, actually scheduling like remote coffee breaks, or basically just like in a certain way, just like small unstructured social time with people in a remote space can be really powerful, because it's a way to get to know people on a personal level. Something also I like to do at meetings is actually intentionally have like the first 10 minutes of a meeting just be talking, because that's what we would do in real life. Everyone's just like, hey, how's your kids? What's going on? We're not robots, so we don't go straight into like a perfect agenda.
Yeah, exactly. And those kinds of social moments are so important to create connection, and then people will feel more trust in each other. So
Yeah.
that's for sure. So around confidentiality, I think it's really important. And I know a lot of folks don't have this conversation with each other, don't actually make agreements around what they want to keep confidential, what is okay to share with others, what goes in your personal vault and will never come out. Make sure you could do this as a team. You could talk to each other about what level of confidentiality, what types of content is okay to share. We very rarely have that conversation, but now that we're remote, so much more is getting written down, in digital communication. What is okay to share in written form? We don't know. We need to have that conversation. So make sure to write down those confidentiality agreements where everyone can see them and access them, and refresh their memory in case they forget what that agreement was.
Yeah, exactly. And it's, because if you imagine, I mean, making confidentialities explicit is so important, because um, if people don't like make that clear, if you have someone in the back of their mind saying like, well, I want to share this thing, but I'm not really sure what's going to happen if I share it,
Yeah.
and they're not clear about that, then you have people holding back potentially really important information, if not just personally important, but important for what's going on. Um, and also, as a mediator, when we talk about confidentiality, it's really important to be able to create a space where people can just explore possibilities. Like, I don't want this to be set in stone, but I want to be able to throw out a creative idea that maybe we're just going to shoot down, but not have to make it stick on me, you know?
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, so part of confidentiality also is like being clear about what you are going to share. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is the
And
part.
especially I think now when we're our home life is our work life, it's all blended. There is no separation anymore because we're all at home, working from home anyway. Understanding, having those clear agreements about confidentiality are especially important for folks nowadays.
Totally. Yeah. So in regards to honesty, this is like a really important thing around leadership. One of the greatest things I learned about leadership was people are paying more attention to your actions than your words, but they're really actually paying attention to how those things correlate with each other. And so being transparent and following through on your word and saying what you mean and meaning what you say is really important. But one good trick around this is for leaders to send out like regular status updates to keep team members in the loop about important decisions and updates. People really want to, taking the risk of telling people the truth about what's going on, even if it's not always the easiest information, is a really good way to be more honest as a leader.
Yeah, absolutely. And that can be like, that information can be written down. Like, it doesn't have to be an all hands meeting. Like, it actually makes a lot more sense to say, hey, this is where we're at. These are the decisions that are on the table. This is what's going on. Just let people know what's contextually happening that you as a leader have you into, but others may not. And that does actually take some vulnerability, but when you as a leader show that vulnerability, especially saying, hey, these are things that I don't know what we're going to do with this part yet. that actually creates a lot more trust in the people that are following you.
Yeah, it makes me think also like this is a good way of like demonstrating like if you want people to be showing up authentically and taking that risk and being courageous, showing your own courageousness by showing your own vulnerability is a really key thing. Yeah.
Exactly. All right. All right. So next step is around reliability. So one thing to talk about, or I'm sorry, responsibility. One thing to talk about, and that I love to encourage people to do, is to have what I call a mistake abration. So that's a celebration of mistakes. So it's a specific meeting where people get together and they celebrate the mistakes that people have made. So it's all out in the open. Nobody's hiding in shame around a mistake they may have made. And maybe you can even have prizes for the biggest doozy of the week, whatever that might be. It really allows people to feel safe and relax around making mistakes. And as like they'll share them much quicker, they'll share those mistakes much quicker, which would be great. And you can get ahead of them rather than folks being afraid to talk about it, not trusting others to share their mistakes, and then it actually getting really much worse down the line.
Yeah, and there's a hidden thing here about like a way of showing that you're trustworthy is being able to admit that you've made mistakes. Like, it seems tempting to be like, I wanted you to know how safe and trustworthy I am by just telling you how great I am. But people see
That
through.
really works, Duncan.
Yeah, yeah, it doesn't. And people can see through that because they know that we're all imperfect. And being able to say, hey, here's some ways that I've made mistakes in the past. Um, that's a good way to get someone to trust you a lot because they know that you know that. Now, of course, that also requires a bit of accountability. You better be ready to, make the changes based on those mistakes.
Yeah.
Responsibility is like closely related to reliability, and uh, so reliability is about like that consistency, but it's also just like making sure that you do what you say you're going to do.
That's
Um,
it. It's like you
and
do what you say you're going to do, right?
Exactly. And so a good way to do this, especially in this virtual remote space, is to actually create a place where people are keeping track of like, what they're working on, what kind of progress they're making, and how it's going along. Because when we're not in that face-to-face space, like it's actually really hard to know what other people are doing in their faraway places.
Yeah.
And sorry, world, for the trash truck picking up recycling behind me here. Yeah.
Well, welcome to our remote world, right?
Exactly. The cats like trying to get food and trash trucks here. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Something else fun, kind of related to that I've seen other people do, other companies do, is to have times on their calendar or times during the day where people are working on their own thing, but together. So they have like just video on. It might be mute, but it's like you see your coworkers. You're all working on your own thing, but at least in some way you're connected and you see each other, and then you can, like you would if you were in the office, come up to somebody and ask a question. You could send a chat message to somebody and ask a question, right? And so there's some way that we're all working together that you kind of can recreate that feeling as well. And finally, the last suggestion we have around how to build trust remotely is to make sure to gather and send out appreciations of team members. I think it's often the conversations that we have are the next thing to do, or the mistake that was made, or the thing that needs to be fixed. And it's very, very important that people feel appreciated. And you can use any asynchronous communication to do that. Maybe it's just like, you can even schedule this in Slack, like 9 a.m. on Fridays is appreciation time, and everybody inputs an appreciation about someone, right? And then people really feel they feel valued, and they really feel seen. You're on mute, Duncan.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Truck's gone now. Yeah. It's so important to like, both, because competence is about both like lifting up what people are good at, and acknowledging that, and that also creates space for people to be able to like, to learn. And, it's a big part of competence also is being able to say, you know what, I'm actually not that good at that. I would like to learn more about that. But being able to admit what you don't know is actually the best way to learn how to learn that thing. Um, yeah. Um, yeah.
All right, so those were 7 different ideas for how to build trust or behind the screen. And Duncan and I would really love for you to join us if you want to dive deeper into this type of content, into really each component at a real deep level and how it affects you personally. We'd love for you to join our 6-week trustworthiness course. It begins next Monday, October 5th, and registration closes this Friday. So this is like, if you want to get in now. But we'd love to have you participate. And for more information and to enroll in the course, please just visit our website. It's spokenwheel.co.
Great. And over here on the side of the Facebook live feed, you can find the 7 elements of trust. And there's also a link that'll get you straight to the trustworthiness course.
We really hope that you join us in this and build your own trust and trustworthiness from behind the screen.
Thank you.